manage your own money. And if you're not inclined to do that, that's what we do on a professional basis. So we'll help you find a professional manager that suits your needs and interests. We assume that you're here because you want to eventually build a portfolio of some amount by a certain date, and learn how to practice certain investment strategies. And there's tons of strategies, and we'll go over a bunch of them this evening as well. So if that's the case, you're in the right place. And what do you suppose the first thing you should do? First thing you should do when you're talking about money management. It's not a trick question.
I would say write everything down.
Oh, God bless you. Look at that. Write your goals down. I tell you, not many people do this. I've been in this industry about 10 years now. Not many people do this. I tell you, every December 31st, I spend an hour in my office at home alone, and I'm funny that way, but I write down my goals for the entire year, not just my financial goals. If you just do your financial goals, you're still, you're more apt to meet your goals than the average person. And I do personal goals, like, I'm a competitive guy, I play sports, and I have goals for those, and goals for what I want to do with my kids and my wife, and vacations, and what have you. And so I take it to the nth degree, but if you're talking about finances, you need to write them down, right? You need to have goals. And, what's a goal? I mean, a goal might be, I want $1 million before I die, right? Well, that's not a great goal. That's an aim, because most people don't know when they're going to die, right? So, number one, you won't be around to enjoy it. And number two, you don't know when that is. So how can you take action? All right, what you need to have is a time frame. If you have a goal and a time frame, then you got something there. You have something that you can evaluate periodically. And when you're talking finance, I recommend you have it reviewed every 6 months, because there's all kinds of life things that happen on that revised quadrant there. You may have catastrophic illness, maybe maybe there's a death in the family now, and the husband or wife has to go to work, and there's any myriad reasons why even the best laid plans and goals aren't going to work. You may have to revise them. You may have to even reset them. I'll give you an example. What about the person who is looking to retire at 55, and now you're 53, and all of a sudden the market tanks, and whatever investments you're in have just dropped by 50%. Probably the best plan there is to go on working for another 5 years, whatever it is, so you recoup that. So you gotta set the goals. They gotta have a time frame so that you can measure them, and you have some plan of action. And throughout the course of your life, you're gonna have to revise and maybe even reset them. So you want to make sure your bases are covered. In addition to just, we're not here just to help you manage investments here. You need to budget and learn a lifestyle. I'll give you a great example of this. I had a client 10 years ago. He was a middle manager at GM. He was probably making about $150,000, $200,000 a year. He's a young guy. He's 37. Had 2 kids, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And as much money as this guy made, he couldn't tell me what he paid in his mortgage. He couldn't tell me what his monthly expenses were. And he had plenty of money. He hadn't even begun to invest. I said, all right. And so let's write down what your goals are. He says, well, I want to send both my kids to Stanford, because he had graduated there. And I said, all right, we can look up online and find out what that costs. And this is 10 years ago, mind you, but it was $250,000 roughly for a 4-year degree per person. So that's $500,000 right there, right off the top. He wanted to retire at 55, and he wanted to buy a house in upstate, in northern Wisconsin. There's apparently someone near Green Bay that's somewhat like Traverse City-ish, and property values are like that too. So, and he wanted to buy a new car every 5 years. So we ran all these things, and it turned out at the age of 55, that was a new car year, for him. In addition to, at that age, his oldest child would be 21, would be a senior at Stanford. His youngest would be a sophomore. So he's paying $125,000 just in tuition that year. That was the same year he was going to retire, so he doesn't have an income anymore, right? It was the same year he was going to buy the house. So when this all shook out, the bottom line was when he was 55, and the next year when he was 56, he was completely broke. And I showed him this, he thought I was insane. I said, well, let's follow the numbers. just that year alone, you're spending almost $700,000. You haven't invested anything yet, other than he had a little money in a 401k, but he was probably putting 2% of his money in there, which is nothing, even though he's making good money, right? So, you know, it was very eye-opening for him once he got there, and then he couldn't even tell me what he spent on a monthly basis. So we got him we got him lined up, and it certainly was eye-opening for him. But that's something, you know, whether you're making $200,000 a year or $20,000 a year, I mean, you have to, you know, good, prudent money management is such that you need to have some kind of budget, some kind of idea of what you're spending for your, on your personal, just to live, right? You want to manage your risks. You know, I want to send my kids to college, and one of my goals, certainly, and I have a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, so they're getting close. And I've set a little money aside to do that, but if I get run over by a bus on my way home, what's going to happen? I don't know, you know, but I do have some insurance, and that's one way, just one example of managing risks. We'll talk about others here. So, you know, if I tell my wife, you know, if I get run over, she'll be a married widow and the kids go to college, you know, so I sleep with one eye open at night. But these are, you know, if you're managing your risks and have some kind of a budget, some kind of knowledge of what you're spending on a monthly basis, you're on the basis of forming good habits financially. It's okay to start small. All right. You don't have to have $1 million portfolio to get started. I mean, you can $5,000 in an IRA, probably a great place to start. I was telling somebody earlier here, I think it was Winju, I have a chemistry and psychology degree from the University of Michigan. Mm-hmm. And I went to grad school for business, not knowing anything about it. I'm sitting in my first finance class, and the professor's talking about how money compounds. And he said, you know, I was 21 at the time. He said, do you have any idea if you put $1 away today and didn't take it out to your 70 and a half, which is, you know, required in the IRA now, do you have any idea what that would be worth at 9%, which is the historic stock market return? And I thought, $7, something like that. It was $71.22 for $1. And the light bulb went on. I thought, geez, why doesn't everybody do that? Well, when you're 21, you're not thinking about it, right? And you don't have $5,000, sure. But, you know, the earlier you get started, the better. And that's the point here. And, you know, you can put it on autopilot. There's all kinds of funds out there that are titled like Retirement 2040, and you know, they're designed to just set it in there and keep feeding it every year until you need it, until you retire. So there are those kinds of options, but you can start small, and I alluded to it here. IRA is a great place to start. I don't know if you've started doing that. If you're working, if you have any kind of income, you should do that. Current laws are such that you can put $5,000 a year in an IRA, $6,000 if you're older than 50, and to the extent that you have income of that amount, you should put as much of that as you can. If you don't, put $1,000 in there. I mean, put something. That's the point. They're designed to be hard to raid. What we mean by that is that there's actually tax penalties if you take them out before you're 59 and a half. But there are reasons that you can do it. I mean, first-time home buyers is just one example. You know, why you can take it out. But if you're feeding your IRA every year, putting the $5,000 or whatever you can do every year, you're forming again long-term habits and commitments to your own financial well-being. So now you set up an IRA, let's say, and you say, well, what do I invest in? Well, that's a loaded question, right? It depends. There's so many choices, and everyone's circumstances are different, but you got to consider what's your risk tolerance. You know, how much risk can you stomach? Can you sleep at night if you're investing in, you know, a penny stock or something? You know, I wouldn't be able to do that, frankly, but I do toy with them occasionally. But you have to know, you know, what are you willing to risk, right? You don't have to take big risks, but you have to have a plan and you have to have a support system. So if you're doing it yourself, you know, maybe a family member can give you encouragement and tell you, hey, you have to put your money in your IRA this year or whatever. If you're not, I mean, that's something that we do, certainly at the firm, but you need some kind of a feedback loop there. You need someone, if it's not yourself, reminding you, okay, you know, we